My name is Dorian Marina, and I welcome everyone to the second part of our discussion this afternoon, Writing Far, Writing Home. How do Filipino writers in the diaspora build an audience? Who do they write for? And do they inherently desire to be read by their own country? And to discuss this topic and to address some of these questions, we have three writers with us this afternoon. I will introduce all of them, and then we will hear from their thoughts and comments. To your right is Ester Tapia. She is a poet in the Cebuano language. Her published books include Sinong Ang Tuhawit, Sinong Ang Bag-on Haon. Her Cebuano poetry has been translated into English by Merly Alunan and published by the University of the Philippines Press. Ester Tapia Hubad, a multi-awarded poet, she received the Umpil Gawad Balaktas for Cebuano poetry. A collection of her poetry is translated into German by Sibyl Klefanghaus, and it is the translation of Where is the Kite Flyer? Our second panel, yes, we can applause to welcome Ester Tapia. Yes, thank you. Our second speakers to my left, Maria Renker is a Filipino-born author, cultural advocate, and entrepreneurial publisher based in Germany. Through M. Renker Books, she champions Filipino literary voices abroad, fosters multilingual publishing, and embodies family-driven creativity in every project. Welcome, Maria. And our third panelist is Jean Alcantara, a writer, translator, poet, journalist, and immigration advisor based in the United Kingdom. He holds an MBA from Oxford Brookes University. Jean was previously a reporter for ABS-CBN's The Filipino Channel. He currently co-hosts the award-winning international television program, Juan EU Connect, known for its migration advocacy and investigative documentaries on the Philippine diaspora in Europe. Welcome, Jean. And we will begin our discussion this afternoon with Ester Tapia.
The title of this event is What Bewitches Us, Writing Far, Writing Home. I am a writer in the Cebuano language, one of the regional languages in the Philippines, spoken by at least 20 million people in the Visayas and Mindanao regions. Cebuano is the language of my imagination. It is the language I grew up with, the language I learned when I was a child at home and in the elementary schools when books were written and read by us pupils in unison in the Cebuano language. When I was growing up, there were two Cebuano language magazines, Bagong Suga and Bisaya magazine. Bagong Suga folded in the 70s, and Bisaya magazine at its height has a subscription of 20,000 copies per week. Bisaya still exists and is distributed now only online. It has a subscription of about 10,000 every week, which is not bad for a regional language. Cebuano is the language I dream in. I was in grade 2 when I won the contest as Best Reader and Speaker, when I recited a Cebuano translation of Mi Ultimo Adios by our national hero, Jose Rizal, in the Grand Town stage during an inter-school competition. I remember this because I lost my shoes in the crowd and I had to recite the poem barefoot. Now, my younger grandchildren are learning more English than Cebuano in schools. Writing for me is a way of pushing back the scenario when the younger generations will no longer be able to read or understand what I am writing. I write poetry in Cebuano. I translate works from English to Cebuano, even as I worked continuously in Nepal for 13 years and have been a permanent resident in Germany in the last 25. I write with the knowledge that I could write best in the language I was born into, and I could write best for the people who know the language I write in. I go home every year to learn the language anew, to know how the people, especially the younger ones, are speaking, the new subculture texts, the idiomatic expressions. In diaspora, I reach out to my readers via my literary group in the Philippines, schools, universities, communities. I return to the country every year and stay there for 2 to 3 months. I do the usual stuff, book launches, participate in writers' workshops, attend literary events, deliver lectures. But I dream of a time when my Cebuano poems will find resonance, not just among the teachers and students of literature, but among the men and women of the streets, sari-sari storekeepers, food sellers, house helpers, and housewives. My next book will hopefully be launched in a street, very small bookshop specializing on Cebuano books called the Lost Bookshops. Maybe the readers, our readers, will be able to recreate themselves and shape their own worlds from our words and books. They can become poets too with their lives and in their way stir the welfare springs of our humanity. Now for the guest of honor, Philippines, at the Frankfurt Book Fair, my poetry has been translated into German. As a poet in Germany, it is a fantasy fulfilled to see how the Cebuano poems have been transformed into the German language by my translator, Sibylle Cliffinghouse. In a way, it pushes, for me, the limits of the words written in Cebuano. For me, it enriches my imagination of my Cebuano tradition and sensibilities, because I understand a bit of German. I hope in some ways it brings something new to a German reader, something strange but recognizable, something identifiable in the way that poetry is, in that unspoken language that we all share. Thank you very much.
Salamat, Esther. Our next speaker is Maria.
Hello, everybody. Maayong adlaw sa inyong mga tanan. That's in Ilonggo. Hiligaynon, it's a different language than Bisaya, as Miss Esther mentioned. And also, Guten Tag. Okay, so writing far. As a Filipino living in Germany, it can be a bit confusing. I am not fully in Germany and I'm not fully in the Philippines whenever I go home. So that's why I wanted to integrate. I wrote a book about it, about my memories of home, so that the next generations would remember. I could share with them my culture, my language, my food through my stories. And through that, I don't have to choose if I could be Filipino or I could be a European. I could be both. Through my book, they would understand that they can be both in both worlds. I could build a bridge between two cultures, and it's okay. So my book, Bratwurst and Batchoy, talks about my memories and it's really funny. I'm the Batchoy. And you can guess who the Bratwurst is. It's not me. It's a love story. It's a memory of my hometown, my culture, the food. There's more food in there. And of course, a love story as well. And I wanted to share that to my audience. And it's for the young generation. The story is focused for the young generation. So they don't forget our culture, our food, our traditions, and even if they're in a different world, it's okay. They can be both, and they can be more. And that's my take on writing far and writing home. I bring home wherever I am. Thank you.
Salamat Maria. Jean.
Okay, magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. Guten Tag. Okay, well, first of all, a bit of background about me. I went overseas for the first time in 1980. I went to Saudi Arabia. I stayed there for maximum 11 months. Then I came to the UK I went to the UK to complete my studies. I did Russian studies. Then I had a family. Then got involved with my community, publishing all sorts of things. And what I'd like to do is just show you some of the things, because there's a lot of them. So next slide, please. Okay, so these are just 3 of the magazines I started. As you can see, that first one was in February 1985. And I have a copy here. And I don't know if you noticed that this was just a photocopied magazine, because that's all we could afford at the time. Then the second one, later that year, we managed to get funding to produce a proper magazine. It's this one. Then we changed the format. This one is in 1986, after the February 1986 revolution in the Philippines. I have it here. I brought everything yeah, in case someone is interested to see. Okay, next slide, please. So there's another one in 1987. Then we changed it to another journal, if you like, called the Filipino. Then reverted back to Bangka. Now, all these contained stories about Filipinos in the UK and sometimes Europe. So again, this one, that one, for example, this one is still photocopied because we ran out of funding and we couldn't raise anymore. But we continued with it because there are a lot of stories about the community, you know, not just in Germany Germany and the UK, but across Europe. Next, please. And so there's another newspaper called Philippine Express. And again, the stories are about mainly the things that affect the community. All right. Next, please. Okay, and some, as you can see, the headlines, some of them are historical for overseas Filipinos. For example, the absentee voting was passed in the Philippines, and for the first time, we Filipinos overseas got our vote. Although, whether it's effective or not is up for debate. And then we got some funding again and managed to produce a thicker journal. And then back to a newspaper. Next, please. Oh, sorry. Before this, so I was doing all this. I was leader of the opposition, if you like, in London. First, I was anti-Marcos back in the 80s. And then after that, when Duterte came to power, or even before that, I was an anti-Duterte leader. So I was very unpopular with the Duterte crowd. Until now, when I go to The Hague to cover the detention of the former President Duterte. All the Duterte supporters there, I mean, they kind of practically want to beat me up, I guess. But they don't, of course. This is Europe, after all. Then a friend of mine said to me, Gene, his name is June Terra. He's a poet and an artist based in London. He said to me, Gene, all these things that you're doing, in terms of politics and helping the community, will anybody remember you in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? Because, you're nothing in Europe. All the big people are in the Philippines, all the movers and shakers. So I said, yeah, you're right. And that's when I started thinking, maybe I should focus on literature. And interestingly, after that, I published a full collection of poems, but poems not by me, but translated by me from Russian. So anybody here know Anna Akhmatova from Russia? Mm-hmm. So this is the first collection of her poetry translated into Filipino, with Savage Minds in Cebu, in Bicol, published. So when I saw that, I was really encouraged, and now I'm focusing on coming out with my stories. And I thought I'd just read you one of the poems I did at that time. I'll stand up if you don't mind.
Give.
On her bed, the woman sleeps. Her black hair strewn all over the pillow. Her face dimly lit by the flickering, dying candle on a tiny altar nailed above her head on the wall. On her bed, the woman sleeps. Her brown skin glowing smoothly against embroidered flowery sheets. Clasped on her heaving breasts, a picture frame, shielding her moist eyes from the lamppost, casting shadows outside the window at her feet. Her stub nose twitches almost imperceptibly, breathing the suffocating fragrance of freesias, filling her minuscule bedsitter. On a second-hand bedside table with varnish peeling off ancient wood. From home, an unanswered letter lies, covered with dust, wrinkled by dried tears. And I hope that I'd be able to come up with more of this, but in publication format, not just individual magazines. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Jean and Esther. We will have time for some Q&A, so give some considerations to if you would like to ask our panelists a question. But I would like to start us off because we're so fortunate on this panel, although we are talking about these interesting, complex issues of writing afar, looking back to the Philippines. We have writers who engage in many different forms: memoir, nonfiction, poetry, translation, journalism, and they're all approaching this in different ways. All of you use multi-languages, you use different languages in your writing. I'm interested to hear about how you choose what language to use in different formats to express different ideas or perhaps target at different kinds of audience. How do you make that creative choice about what language to engage with, what language to express your writing in?
Well, for me, I choose usually trilingual. It's in English, Deutsch, and Hiligaynon, or sometimes Tagalog. Let's make it 4. Because these are how, generally, if you're an immigrant like me from the Philippines who's living here in Germany, that's how women think, say, or feel at home, in their homes, with their children. We use these languages to communicate with our kids, with our families, with some of our friends. So that's why I wanted to integrate these languages in my stories as well. Yeah.
So I write poetry in Cebuano since 1985. When I attended the Silliman Writers Workshop, I already submitted Cebuano poetry. Until now.
Well, I myself write both in English and in Filipino. I guess there are, because I'm Tagalog, there are times when I start writing something and the urge to do it in Filipino sometimes is stronger than to do it in English, because I'd be able to express things more, maybe do a bit of metaphor on the side. Although in English, when I do that, I know I can reach a wider spectrum of people without having to, get it translated and all that. Having said that, of course, my translation also occupies my time because of the translation. This book of translations from Russian, I'm now working on other Russian poets to bring into the Filipino language. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And, yes.
Yeah, I have forgotten. I wrote and started writing poetry in English in 1979 when I was a fresh graduate, and then I shifted to writing poetry in Cebuano in 1985.
Yeah, so English and Cebuano. And Jean's book here of Akhmatova poetry, that's a great example of the independent publishing we have going on in the Philippines, because it was published by Savage Minds, right? Okay, which is one of our independent publishers that you can find. And
yes.
so that's a good example of the kind of diversity that we have that has come in the last few years of our publication in the Philippines. I open the floor to anybody who has a question. Please raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you. So all of us here gathered, I see a hand here, can hear your question. Please keep your question brief so we can hear the reactions from our panelists.
Hi, good morning. Just wanted to open this question to the three speakers. Your challenges so far, or the observations regarding third culture Filipinos, because you're writing about home, but home might not be your impression, or your imagination of home might not be the same to what they see as home. So observations or challenges, can you talk about it? Thank you.
Shall I start? Actually, this term, third culture kids, has been exercising me for more than 2 decades now. Because having migrated from the Philippines, living in the UK or in Europe, I'm a third culture adult. So I suffer what our third culture kids suffer. Because when I go back home, yeah, I'm still Filipino, I speak the language, but I'm impatient with the traffic now. I get so hot, I want to go back as soon as I could, back to the safety of Europe. But when I'm in Europe, and I tell you a little story, I was also very active in politics. I ran for councillor in London. I ran twice as a member of parliament. Then I ran for the European Parliament. Unfortunately, I lost its time. I don't know why, but I think it's because maybe I don't speak, I don't look like, the natives. Because I still speak Filipino after 40 years in the UK, and I cannot change that. I'm proud of it. When you're competing with others who speak posh or whatever, I think it's an issue. So yes, third culture adults, it's a major issue for all of us, and I don't think we've explored it enough.
I go home to my country every year. so I can learn the language anew. And I know that especially the younger ones, they speak a Cebuano that sounds vulgar to my ears. But I know that there are poets who are now using words like the equivalent of fuck you in English, but in Cebuano, they're using it in their poetry, and I really admire them. And I keep on asking myself, would I be able to use this Cebuano phrase in my poetry? I don't know. No? I haven't tried, but it is very difficult. But I go there every year to learn the subculture text, the jokes, stuff like that.
Because language is always changing, evolving,
Yes.
becoming something else. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, diga. Yeah, the first time I heard that my son mentioned it at home, I was really shocked. You know, it's a word that's used by everyone who's German have heard the word diga, and initially it's used by kids who are, you know, out there partying, and I was really against that one word. It was really a conversation at home. But then, as I am integrating into the society, I understand it more, that these are just normal things that I needed to adopt with my children. And of course, we have to meet halfway. And it's also important for me, for them to remember my own culture, my own language. So that's why I never forget to teach them a little bit of this and that, a certain word every day, you know, as much as I can, because we should always meet halfway, and they should never forget. That's really important, because they're the third and fourth generation German, and our language, we have 100 plus language in the Philippines, and if I can save just one, my own, and it's really important for me, and that's basically it.
Oh, yes, Gene.
Can I just pick up on what Esther said earlier? Because recently I wrote a poem in Filipino about, you know, the president that's now in prison in The Hague, and I used the word "fuck you" in Tagalog. It's hindot, no, which is really vulgar. But I thought it's appropriate because the subject used it all the time. I mean, he was such a vulgar president, sorry. And then also the swearing, putang ina. And my own brother was shocked. He said, Kuya, I didn't expect you to be using this language in a poem. But that's in Filipino. I haven't used it in English.
Other questions? Yes, I see a hand up here.
Yes. Thank you for calling on me. Yeah, I'm Howie Severino. I'm a journalist from the Philippines. I just want to connect to what Gene Alcantara just mentioned. I know that he's been to The Hague, right outside the International Criminal Court, where there have been crowds of supporters of our former president, Rodrigo Duterte, who's being charged with crimes against humanity. Please help us understand this, Gene. Maybe the other panelists can also shed some light on this. And correct me if any of my assumptions are wrong. Our assumption, the assumption of many in the Philippines, is that overseas Filipinos, especially in Europe, just based on some of the reporting and videos that we've been seeing in the Philippines, are overwhelmingly supportive of former President Duterte. Now, since I suppose these overseas Filipinos are part of your target audience in terms of your writing and your reporting, number one, is that true? There's an overwhelming sentiment of support for former President Duterte among overseas Filipinos, and help us understand why.
Thank you, Howie. Good to see you. I think we can say that President Duterte, has a lot of supporters, not just in Europe, not just in the UK, even Germany, Switzerland. So there are pockets of what they call DDS groups. And the thing is, we don't have the numbers, but they are noisy, very noisy. And, you know, you mentioned The Hague. If you go to The Hague, I was there end of September. Before you could stay in front of the prison, maybe take some selfies for souvenir and so on. But because they're so noisy there, they held parties, they had picnics, then they would knock on the doors of the residents to use their toilet because there are no toilet facilities there. And then they would use the forest to do their number one and number two. So it really gave a bad impression of Filipinos. Then they got moved to the front of the other side of the prison, and they renamed it Duterte Street. And they're always screaming that when I went there, they were just chanting. When they saw me, they were chanting, "Free Duterte." And then there was a celebration, if you like, a sort of barrio fiesta with big stage, loud music, and a huge exhibition about his life. And again, they were so noisy. When we went there, I went there with someone called Anton Montalban, who's a writer for Vera Files. And we were just standing there taking videos and pictures. And then somebody came to us, said, "Would you like some water?" And we said, "No, thank you." And then Anton said, "That's one of the bloggers from Manila." So they noticed us because we stood out. Apparently, everyone who was a DDS supporter had to wear a ribbon, a green ribbon. Of course, we didn't have that ribbon. And then another young woman came up. Turned out it's Chrisette Chu. And she started chatting to us. And so just to simplify things, they are noisy. And I think they have a source of money, really, to enable them to stay in The Hague. Now they have a portalet on Duterte Street, which they pay for. Where does the money come from? They always have lots of food there. When I was there last day, Harry Roque was offering me lechon and rice. I said no, but who pays for this food? And they can come there all the time, and we don't know. So just to answer that other question, the other point, it's actually difficult to understand why these people are so fanatically inclined towards Duterte. And I thought my own belief is that because they don't read the media, they only listen to their bloggers.
I think I have an answer for that. Some call it blind fanaticism because I think we all know that Duterte is the first president coming from Mindanao. So they're loyal to their own. This is the first president who came from Mindanao, and the others are always from Luzon or Visayas. So they are protecting their own. But my call for every Filipino back home, and here as well, what's happening, you see the news every day, right? It's quite, for me, I'm so sorry to say, it's a bit embarrassing what's happening in the country, especially the corruption. We're stealing money from our own people. And it's not, I think, the best time to be a blind fanatic anymore. It's not about a president coming from Mindanao, coming from Visayas, or coming from Luzon. It's about the people, because we are all taxpayers and the money they're stealing are from us. And that should be the focus here. It's not about just an individual. It's for the country. So I guess that answers Sir Howie's question.
Unfortunately, Esther, I think that's going to have to wrap up our discussion for this afternoon. But please, I encourage everybody to continue these conversations and continue these important issues and talking with our panelists who will be on the side of the stage. If you want to ask them further questions, I encourage you to do so. Our panelists this afternoon were Maria Renker, Jean Alcantara, and Ester Tapia. Thank you, and thanks to all of you for participating and joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.